in coming up with this topic today, now some of you are probably wondering, why are we going over presentation skills in graduate seminar? I mean, it's fitting, right? Graduate seminar, you learn how to present, learn how to persuade, engage an audience. And I had that same question when I was at ExxonMobil, and they told me that I was going to be going to a full day training on how to give the first minute of a presentation. I thought, you got to be kidding me. A full day, I'm a busy guy, I've got a lot of things going on. A full day just to learn how to give the first minute of your presentation. Well, I walk into this room, and there's this camera crew there, and they step aside and interview me, and they say, what are you working on? What do you do at ExxonMobil? And so I tell them, I say, I work on process control, and I can program computers, and So I gave them that introduction, and they recorded it, and then they taught us. These were a group of newscasters, professional public speakers, this whole team of consultants that were there to spend a full day with us to teach us about presentation skills. So what I want to do today, maybe for about 10 or 15 minutes, is teach you some of the really key things that they taught us, and then let you practice. And so many of you will be able to come up here and be able to practice your introduction to a presentation, also record it, okay? And I mentioned at the beginning of that they recorded me, and then they also recorded me at the end. And there was a night and day difference. And my attitude changed after seeing those results. I said, it was completely different between when I walked in this room today and when I've left, in terms of my ability to be able to engage and connect with audiences. Some of these principles, some of these simple things that you can do in presentations to start right, okay? Because if you don't start right, then that's a signal to people to bring out their smartphone and, in a conference or something like that, do something else or check out, mentally check out. So we want to be able to engage an audience very well, and I have a number of examples. But first of all, I just want to start with these examples, okay? Now I haven't tested these here. Hopefully they'll work. I tried to record them earlier. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start with something that we're familiar with, and this has Dr. Cook on it, okay? So this is when he introduced Dr. Langer. I want you guys to pay attention to these speakers. I've got a number of them. I've got Martin Luther King, okay? I've got Dr. Langer. I've got Salman Khan, who does Khan Academy, when he gave a TED Talk. And then also there's one more that I'll tell you about, an entrepreneur, okay? BYU entrepreneur, in fact. And so I want you, when you listen to these, try to pick out some of the things that these speakers do to start their talk and what they do. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this little clip.
Bob has been a pioneer in the field of tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, in addition to his work in drug delivery, pharmaceuticals, and in medical devices in general. He has received many awards that are listed in your program, all of the top awards in engineering and science. He has published close to 1,200 papers and has 800 patents. So he's one of the most innovative and prolific writers that's living today. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Robert Langer to the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today. And I thought I'd tell you of some of our work in biomaterials in the areas of drug delivery and, at the end, tissue engineering. But before I do that, and as a way of starting, a lot of times people ask me, well, how does somebody like a chemical engineer get into the medical field?
Okay, so what did he do? What were some of the things that we had right at the beginning of the talk? We had Dr. Cook introducing him, and then he started off with an introduction. What are some of the key things that he did, either Dr. Cook or Dr. Langer, in that presentation?
So I think in both instances you had something to kind of endear the audience, kind of say, hey, here we all are, we're doing this together, kind of make the atmosphere more real.
Okay, so he paid attention to the audience, Good. What about Dr. Cook? What was the purpose of the introduction there?
It establishes the fact that he's a clear expert on what he's talking about.
Okay, good. He's an expert. Okay, 1,200 papers, elected into all of the national academies, all the major engineering awards. And he told the audience, basically, Dr. Cook was able to do that, but this guy's an expert. We need to listen to him, okay? And we should somehow suspend our disbelief, okay, and listen to him. He might be telling us things that we haven't necessarily thought about before, and we should listen to this guy. Okay, any other thoughts on?
He thanked everybody first.
He thanked everybody. Okay, good. So he thanked everybody. Okay, so it showed some appreciation right at the beginning. Anything else?
He talked about what he was going to talk about just briefly in like one line. He summarized his topic.
Okay, good. So he summarized. I'm gonna put that just a different way. He told us his objective for that talk. Okay, so he told us what he was going to tell us, what he wanted us to, what he was going to be covering. I guess summarize is a good way to say that. Okay, anything else on that? Derek?
Just at least when Dr. Cook was doing the introductions, he kind of mentioned a lot of the things he did. He didn't like try to pull out examples of like patents or papers. I mean, he kind of just left it at those general. He published so many papers. He's got so many patents.
Okay, so he didn't overdo it then. Yeah. So he established him as an expert, but he didn't overdo it in terms of all the details on it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me have you guys listen to one more. Okay, and then we'll try to pick out some common characteristics between these two.
At this time, I have the honor to present to you the moral leader of our nation. I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
Okay, that was it. That was his introduction. Okay, so what common things did you see between Dr. Langer's lecture and Martin Luther King's speech that he gave? Anything that you guys saw similar?
Just very concise.
Okay, very concise, very short. Okay, good. Dr. Pitt and then Nima.
Well, he said that you're going to get a wonderful talk here. It's going to go down in history. So he's really priming the pump to tell the audience that they're really going to get something good. And so that convinces the audience before you even start that the audience is going to think you're real great.
Yeah, that's right. So he told them his objective, which was this is a turning point in history. This gathering today, this talk that I'm going to give, it's going to redefine how we think about civil rights. Okay, great. Nima?
Well, they both had someone to introduce them and tell the audience how important this person is.
What did they say for Martin Luther King? What was the? They called him something, a leader of society.
Yeah, leader.
Was the moral leader of our society. I mean, I'd want to say, "Whoa, who is this guy? I'd like to listen to him." Okay, yeah. So good. So established him as an expert. How did he begin his talk? I'm happy to be here. I'm happy. Showed some appreciation that he was wanting to be there to talk to those. Okay, and then also very clear objective with his talk. Okay, good. So those are a couple. I'm going to pass out this sheet of paper, and you guys are going to, with your talk, I've got two more that I want to show you though. And as we go through these next two, I want you to try to recognize some of these common elements, okay? And these are 5 suggested steps. You guys don't have to follow these. This is just a framework that you can use if you're going to be starting to talk. In developing these, I had to come up with a good acronym, and I had to try to get it as close as I could to Texas, but I couldn't quite get it there all the way. So I came up with something that's close, and that is T.E.C.O.S, okay? So it's close to, get a pen that works even better. Okay, so T.E.C.O.S or T.E.C.O.S, you want to think, establish yourself as an expert, acknowledge the audience's concerns, okay? The audience's concerns, be thinking about the audience, connect with them, and then objective, and then start your presentation. So as you look at many of the best speakers, they hit on these elements, okay? And the other thing that was mentioned is brief. You want to be able to cover this in a minute or less. Okay, a minute or less for the introduction, be able to accomplish all of these. And so I would suggest that this is probably the most important part of your talk. If it's going to be very focused and impactful and you're able to engage the audience, you really need to be able to practice and get this down very well. Okay,
so, John, in the training that you received at Exxon, did they say that this introduction should be tailored to the length of the total presentation in any way, so that if it's an hour-long presentation versus a 10-minute talk, should the introduction be any different?
You know, they really didn't talk about hour-long presentations. They were more talking about, you know, if you have to go talk to the vice president of the company, if you have to talk to the media, if you have to, you know, these kind of things. They weren't as much focused on, you know, the technical conference side. And I imagine your introduction might be, you know, tailored for something a little bit longer, more in depth.
I'd submit that it's probably the same for whatever length of the content is. This introduction, it's to capture the attention of the audience in that first minute. And Dr. Langer, he spoke for an hour, but his intro was
focused.
10 seconds.
Yeah, it was short and focused. That's a good point. And I think the key is engaging the audience. You know, if you can just start and engage the audience right from the beginning, whether it's, you know, and the longer it gets, it's going to be harder to do that. Okay, yeah, so thanks for that comment. Yeah. Okay, so let me just go down through this. Okay, you guys are going to do this with your presentations as well. Okay, the introduction to your presentation about your research. Now, it could be an elevator speech, you know, where you're at a conference, technical conference. It's during one of the break sessions, and there's the world's expert in your topic just standing there, okay, eating a donut. He can't talk really, so you go up and introduce yourself, okay? And you want to be able to talk to him about your research. It's somebody that you wanted to collaborate with, that your research group has wanted to collaborate with, and you have about a minute to tell him what you do, why it matters to him, what your objective of your research is, and you know, so that can also be used for those, you know, elevator speeches, what we call elevator speeches, because it's a brief time to get somebody to think, feel, or do something differently because of your interaction with them. Okay, so let's watch another one here. This is Salman Khan. Okay, does anybody know him or have seen the? Okay, Andrew, tell us about Salman Khan.
So he has something called Khan Academy on the internet where it's a series of tutorials on all sorts of different topics where kids can go online that are struggling in school for something and get a really clear, engaging explanation of how to do something. My little brother used it. He was struggling in his math class, and it really helped him out.
Great. And this guy will say a little bit about what he did. This was part of the TED Talks. Has anybody heard about TED Talks? Okay, so it's kind of high-profile talks. Bill Gates introduced him.
Khan Academy is most known for its collection of videos. So before I go any farther, let me show you a little bit of a montage.
So the hypotenuse is now going to be 5. This animal's fossils are only found in this area of South America, a nice clean band here, and this part of Africa. We could integrate over the surface, and the notation usually is a capital sigma. National Assembly, they create the Committee of Public Safety, which sounds like a very nice committee. Notice, this is an aldehyde, and it's an alcohol. Start differentiating into effector and memory cells. A galaxy. Hey, there's another galaxy. Oh, look, there's another galaxy. And for dollars is their $30 million plus the $20 million from the American manufacturer. If this does not blow your mind, then you have no emotion.
We now have on the order of 2,200 videos covering everything from basic arithmetic all the way to vector calculus and some of the stuff that you saw up there. We have a million students a month using the site, watching on the order of 100 to 200,000 videos a day. But what we're going to talk about in this is how we're going to the next level. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about really just how I got started.
Okay, so let me pause it here because I want to show you a little bit more, but let's just talk about introduction because he finished his introduction already. Okay, he's on to his presentation. Now before I get started, okay, let me tell you about this. He's done with his introduction. Okay, and that's the start. Okay, so he clearly differentiated between the introduction part and now let me start the presentation. Okay, so what did he do there? We had a couple other examples. What did Solomon Kahn do? Okay.
I think he piqued everybody's interest about all those videos, and those were, you know, some of the best clips maybe from what he's done in the past, but it was very entertaining, so he just sort of got your interest.
Immediately engaged. Okay, so I'd say that goes with the C here for concerns. Okay, you want to be able to engage with the audience. So this one is more of an audience item right here. Okay, so how can you relate something very quickly on why that person should listen to you, okay, and had something very engaging. Brad?
He quickly showed that he's an expert by showing, look, I made all these things,
and
then right then he says, now we're going to make it even cooler. We're going to do this. How are we going to expand this even further? So he set up the objective right there in one.
There he goes. Yeah, that was the objective. We are going to take this to the next level. Okay. Okay. Good. So he establishes himself as an expert. He engaged with the audience, he told them his objective, and then he started the presentation.
Just didn't thank Bill Gates.
No. Just didn't thank Bill Gates. That was maybe part of the cutoff at the beginning. Okay. Okay, good. So now I want to I want to continue just a little bit more right beyond the introduction and talk about his idea and how he engages even further going into his presentation. Okay, so he shares an experience right at the beginning. Stories are a great way to do that.
And some of y'all might know, about 5 years ago, I was an analyst at a hedge fund, and I was in Boston, and I was tutoring my cousins in New Orleans remotely. And I started putting the first YouTube videos up really just as kind of a nice to have, just kind of a supplement for my cousins, something that might, you know, give them a refresher or something. And as soon as I put those first YouTube videos up, something interesting happened. Actually, a bunch of interesting things happened. The first was the feedback from my cousins. They told me that they preferred me on YouTube than in person. And once you get over the backhanded nature of that, there was actually something very profound there. They were saying that they preferred the automated version of their cousin to their cousin. At first it's very unintuitive, but when you actually think about it from their point of view, it makes a ton of sense. You have this situation where now they can pause and repeat their cousin. Now they can, without feeling like they're wasting my time. They could, if they have to review something that they should have learned a couple of weeks ago or maybe a couple of years ago, they don't have to be embarrassed and ask their cousin. They can just watch those videos. If they're bored, they can go ahead. They can watch it at their own time, at their own pace. And probably the least appreciated, I guess, aspect of this is the notion that the very first time that you're trying to get your brain around a new concept, the very last thing you need is another human being saying, do you understand this?
Okay, so he told something that was engaged the audience. What was that experience that he told, and why was it interesting?
It's a personal anecdote.
Okay, personal anecdote. Okay, any other reasons why that was engaging or interesting? Were you guys whipping out your cell phones, checking your emails at that point? Okay, it was interesting. You wanted to watch it. You wanted to see what he was going to say next. So why was it interesting? Okay,
I think two reasons. First, because we probably all had something like that happen. We have to help someone out explain something. And second of all, because it's accessible. It's like, oh, this guy who has like this huge website now and started small. Something I can understand.
Okay, good. So he related it to the audience. Okay, so we've all had that experience. We've all had to explain a math concept to our children or cousins or somebody else, okay? And then just how it all got started. It started small and then grew big. It's kind of the American dream, the entrepreneur, okay, of quitting your day job and going off to pursue your dream, okay? So that was interesting. Any other reasons why that first experience was interesting?
For one thing, it was funny when it's like, oh, your nephew or your cousin doesn't like the real you. It likes, and at the same time, that plants a question. You're like, well, why would he like the fake him better than the real him that could answer his questions? So you're like, okay, well, what is it about these YouTube videos that makes them so good?
Okay, so I want to bring up this point that Dallin mentioned, because I think he hit it right on the head. In terms of presenting your research in a way that is interesting, okay? Because I think all of our research is interesting, but it's the way we can present it that challenges our current conception of a concept or exposes our some deficiency in our understanding. If we have somebody that comes up and presents something that we already know, that's boring, okay? That's boring. But if you can stand up and present something that either that makes a new connection in their mind, that they're actually going to learn something new about what you're presenting, if you can phrase it in that way, then it becomes interesting. Okay, so what makes research interesting? And I shared this last year, but you have at least a combination of any of these. So there are 4 things here. You have interesting setting and data, okay? Interesting phenomena, interesting practical contribution, okay? Or interesting theoretical contribution. Okay, so if you can combine 2 of those and say, for example, I have this interesting data that I was able to collect, and that helped me understand this theoretical contribution. Or I had this interesting data that I got from a very practical contribution. So if you can combine 2 of those, the more of those that you can combine, the more interesting it will be to your audience. Okay, so I'm just going to breeze through this, but so let's just cover interesting theoretical contribution. It's not interesting if you confirm audience's assumption. That's obvious. It's unrelated to the audience's assumption. That's irrelevant. Or it denies the entirety of the audience's assumptions. That's absurd. Okay. Actually, I think that third one's quite interesting. Okay. When somebody comes up and says something that just sounds absolutely absurd, I'm like, wow. Okay, let me figure out why he said that. Okay. Sometimes it's just completely crazy, but other times there's something there. Okay. But those are examples of when it's not interesting. Okay. And then. So anyway, there's some research that's gone into this. Davis did extensive research on what makes research interesting to people. And there's either relations among multiple phenomena or characterization of a single phenomena. And it's okay, so making connections in your brain or enhancing a particular aspect of your knowledge. Okay, and they had either characterization of a single phenomena.
Have a look at this. What do you hear?
Ba, 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 ba.
But look what happens when we change the picture.
Ba, 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 ba.
And yet, the sound hasn't changed. In every clip, you are only ever hearing ba with a B.
Ba, ba, ba.
It's an illusion known as the McGurk effect.
Ba.
Take another look.
Ba.
Concentrate first on the right of the screen.
Ba.
Now to the left of the screen.
Ba.
The illusion occurs because what you are seeing clashes with what you are hearing.
In the illusion, what we see overrides what we hear. So the mouth movements we see as we look at a face can actually influence what we believe we're hearing. If we close our eyes, we actually hear the sound as it is. If we open our eyes, we actually see how the mouth movements can influence what we're hearing.
Okay, so now what I want you to do is take a moment on your research topic and go ahead and fill in these areas, how you want to present. So do that for about 5 minutes, and then pair up with the person next to you and practice your introduction. Okay, and then we'll come back together and do a couple of, and if you want to, I might pick on some of you, okay, to come up and do it for us. Okay, so go ahead and practice your own, talking about your research and how you would give either an elevator speech, okay, talking to a stranger about your research for a minute, or the introduction to a technical presentation. So for example, if you went to the AICHE meeting and you had to give a presentation, how would you give the first minute of your presentation based on what we've seen today? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give mine. Thanks for coming to this graduate seminar. I'm really nervous standing up here to present to you guys. I just last minute, just threw this presentation together. I don't know why you guys would want to listen to me. I think, if you can get anything out of this, that'd be great. Anyway, so I'll tell you a little bit about public speaking. Okay? So.
Because the bishop asked me last night to
Exactly. So I wasn't specifically mentioning any particular setting, but a lot of times the things that we have learned growing up, the examples that we've seen have been incorrect ways of giving presentations, okay, or beginning a speech. And so we've got to undo some of those. You never want to say you're nervous. You never want to come in there like you say that you did it at the last minute or weren't prepared. That really does not establish yourself as an expert. In fact, that makes people say, I'm going to tune out because this guy really doesn't have anything useful to share with me. Okay? And then objective, you want to, there was no objective there, was there? I didn't say anything. What I wanted you to think, feel, or do differently because of this presentation. So let me just try that again, okay? Thanks for coming to Graduate Seminar today. I'm going to share with you a few things that I've learned over my time in industry from specialized training that I received about public speaking. And for this very short hour today that we have, I hope to be able to share some of those key concepts with you so that you can give introductions, be powerfully engaging with your audience. I know some of you are asking yourselves, why here in chemical engineering? Why are we talking about public speaking? I'd like to suggest to you today that if you can learn how to do public speaking and do it well, you will be a much more effective employee. You'll be able to convince people in your organization to go in directions that are critical for the success of the organization. And you will become a very influential, powerful person in that organization. So without further ado, I'd like to start some of the discussion about public speaking. Okay, so more effective than the previous one? Okay, I think so. Okay, because we're using some of these principles that most of the very good speakers use to start their presentation. Okay, so with that, anybody would like to volunteer to come up? Andrew? Okay, so Andrew's going to be first one to come up and share what he has. And then we'll have an opportunity to give a little bit of feedback to him as well. Okay, Andrew, go ahead. I need somebody with a timer that can start just to see how long it is. Okay, Aaron will do it? Okay.
I love to snap my fingers, and a snap is really fast. See that? It's really fast. Every time you snap your fingers in that amount of time, guess how many chemical reactions happen in your body? Something like 1 times 10 to the 13th. That's a lot. Really fast, really big number. Well, that means it takes a lot of chemical reactions to keep every single one of us alive. In a factory, to get that rate of reaction, you have to have pressures that are way bigger than the ones on Earth, and temperatures way higher than in a volcano. So how do they happen in our body? About to tell you. It's a magical thing called an enzyme. Today we're going to talk about how enzymes, if we learn how to use them better, can revolutionize our world. And I'm a graduate student at BYU, and that's exactly what I'm studying in our biotechnology laboratory. So you're in for a treat. We're going to blow your mind.
All right, good. So how did he do? So let's just review the things that he did on T.E.C.O.S. Okay, so he started off. How did he mixed it up a little bit, right? How did he do expert? Yeah, I'm a grad student studying this. Okay, when I finish with my PhD, I'm going to be the world's expert in that topic. Okay, I mean that's kind of implied in graduate studies, master's or PhD. Okay, so what about audience? How did he engage the audience, address their concerns?
Big companies have
body language.
Okay, big companies have problems with body language. Okay, it's really unique to what he did at the beginning with the snapping his fingers. Related it to something they knew, to something that they didn't know about, which was rate of chemical reaction. Okay, so snapping your fingers, there's that many reactions that occur in the time that I snap my fingers. Okay, so something they knew, related that. Okay, two things, related those together. Okay, an objective. You say this objective. Okay, he's going to talk about enzymes and have you think, feel, or do something differently based on his presentation about enzymes. Okay, great. Okay, next volunteer. Anybody else want to come up and practice? Okay, Ivan.
I am grateful to be with you this afternoon. I will share with you some of the most important things I've learned in the past 6 years working in the industry. It will increase significantly your revenues by reducing the cost of the energy, by optimizing your process, and reducing the cost of the energy by controlling some of the critical variables in your process. So let's start talking about oxygen.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So how did you establish yourself as an expert?
6 years.
6 years in industry. I want to listen to this guy. He's had some experience, okay? What about your concerns engaging the audience? What am I concerned about?
Money.
Money, revenue. As soon as he says, I can affect your revenue, I can increase your revenue, I'm interested. Tell me how I can do that, okay? Objective, what was his objective? Okay, I'm going to be able to apply some of these principles that I've learned to help you with your revenue, tell you how I do it, and all that stuff. Okay, good. Anybody else that would like to try? Jose?
All right. Thank you so much for staying here today. I know you avoided the urge of going out the door and now wanted to do some public speaking. So thank you for that. Today, I like to come and introduce my research that I've done in the last 2 years. I spent working at Brigham Young University and studying advanced process controls and optimization. And probably some of you are not biggest fans of process control, probably from your experience in your undergraduate class. But here I'm here to tell you how advanced process control and optimization is really revolutionizing and finding new techniques to plan and invest in new energy systems. So without any more delay, I'm going to start my presentation.
Great. Okay. Great topic, by the way. Very good. Okay. So expert. How did you establish yourself as an expert? Similar to the other ones. Okay. I'm a grad student. I've been working on this for 2 years. Okay. I've been working on this for 2 years. I'm just going to tell you in just a few minutes what I've learned in 2 years. Now listen to them. Okay. Concerns. What are your concerns? Yeah, we don't like it. Okay, that's the hardest time to come into an audience that may be adversarial, saying, we don't think you have anything that's worthwhile. Tell us what we need to know. That so he hit that directly. He connected with the audience, what they were thinking and feeling. Sometimes you have multiple audiences within your audience. Okay, let's say you're presenting to a group of technical experts, but also managers. you've got to try to address both of those audiences within that same introduction. Okay. Okay, Dallin?
I think Jose did a pretty good job on this, but I think if you're going to connect on a negative point, you need to make sure you come back around really strong on positive points you're sharing.
Okay, good. So I can tell you guys that you may have had a negative experience in process control. So I've talked to some of you that have. But I want to tell you today something that will make you very excited about process control because it's going to be applicable to you, okay, and your research. Okay, so good. Something like, yeah, so Jose, excellent job with that, and Dallin, great suggestion on that. Okay, so anybody else? We've got time maybe for no more, okay? So you guys are saved because we're out of time. Thank you for reviewing some of these techniques on public speaking today. And I think this is, like I said before, I actually meant that when I gave my second introduction. I think this is, if you can really learn how to do this well, this is going to be a transformative skill in your career. Okay, you're going to have much more impact if you're able to do public speaking well. Okay, thanks, guys.